actually a monk who's been living in a monastery for 16 years. I'm not really part of the rat race very much. So I used to be a little bit before I became a monk. But so I want to hear more from you all who are living in the city and living in Bangalore, leading, having careers and families, more about what your ideas of the rat race are, and then and what are the main challenges you face, and then maybe I can offer some helpful advice with that. But before initially we'll do just a short meditation at the beginning, and then maybe I'll try to limit my talk just to like 30 minutes. Some ideas I have about the kind of what the rat race is and what are some things to try to do or think about and try to practice that might help find relief from it, and then I'll open up the floor to discussion and ask you all for your input. Okay, so let's start with a little meditation. So we begin by, anytime we're meditating, we always begin with posture. First we sit in the appropriate posture for meditation, and then just do some placement meditation to focus the mind, and then generate a positive motivation, and then do the actual body of the meditation. So today the actual body of the meditation will instead be, I'll give the talk when we discuss, and then we can meditate more at the end. So let's start with the posture. So the posture, usually there's seven or 8 points. The first is just the legs. So I think you're all sitting cross-legged or in a chair, so that's fine. Yeah. So you want your legs to be in a cross-legged with one leg, half lotus position, or if you can full lotus, if you're very flexible, used to doing that. But if not, half lotus or just regular cross-legged position is fine. So you have a nice wide, broad base for sitting. Yeah. And then the torso erect. The second point is the torso erect. So the body straight, but not rigid, like holding yourself very tight. You want to be relaxed, right? So to do that, you want to find a place where you're balanced, right? Your torso is perfectly centered, kind of on your, above your pelvis. So you're not falling to the front or to the back or to the left or right. So you're perfectly balanced, and then you just let your weight kind of fall, settle down in your seat. And then the shoulders broad and open, so you can breathe freely. It's the third point. And the fourth point is the hands. Usually, there's different mudras to put the hands in, but the best for meditation is to have the right hand on top of the left, and the tips of the thumbs touching. And then rest that in your lap, just in front of your navel. Yeah, like that. That's the fourth. So there's the legs, the torso erect, shoulders broad and open, hands in the mudra of meditative equipoise, it's called. And then the head slightly tilted forward, so you tuck your chin in just a little bit. Not like this, but just imagine you're just, your head in a regular position, and then just slightly tucked, maybe 1 centimeter. So the back of your neck is a little bit elongated. So this helps to bring your gaze isn't like falling, your head's not falling back, right? You don't want your head falling forward either, but so it helps to bring your gaze down. So that's the fifth, and then the sixth is the gaze, right? Your eyes. So in this tradition, you usually have the eyes not closed because you become sleepy and drowsy, and not fully open because you're too distracted by what you see around you. So have the eyes half closed and bring your gaze down to about here. So you're kind of looking along the ridge of your nose towards the ground at about a 45-degree angle down towards the ground. But you don't want to look at anything with your eyes. Rather, you want to pull the focus of your gaze back to the space between you and the floor, what is in front of you, and just let your eyes rest unfocused in space. Right? And then the sixth is the lips and teeth, just in a natural position. And then is that the sixth? Anyway, then the seventh is the tip of the tongue, just gently pressed against the roof of against the gums just behind your front teeth. Right? So that helps the mouth to stay, to prevent the mouth from becoming dry. Okay, so just to run through those points again. So the main objective of the meditation posture is to let your body rest in a position that's comfortable, so you can sit without having to pay attention to your body for the duration of the meditation session, right? So that you can focus on your mind while meditating. Okay, so to run through the points again, there's the legs crossed, the torso erect, the shoulders broad and open, the hands in the lap, right hand on top of the left, the tips of the thumbs touching, the head tilted slightly forwards, the eyes half closed, and the gaze resting unfocused in space. And then the lips and teeth in a natural position, and the tip of the thumb, the tip of your tongue gently touching the roof of the mouth behind the front teeth. So that's the posture. And then the next thing is to begin putting effort into focusing our attention. So there are many different objects, possible objects of meditation, but for beginners, then a good one is to watch the breath. And among different ways to watch the breath, again, for beginners, a good one is to just watch the whole process of breathing. Right? So breathe naturally, and just observe the whole process of breathing as you inhale and exhale, inhale, exhale. Just observe the breath coming in through your nose and mouth, into your upper lungs, middle lungs, lower part of your lung. Watch your abdomen rise. And then as the inhalation comes to an end slowly, and then there's a pause, and then you exhale. Right. So to watch the breath, first we need to generate the intention that I'm going to watch my breath. And it's good to set a duration and time to think for how long I'm going to do that. So why don't we, since there's quite a few new people here tonight, then we'll spend a little more time just doing this. So we'll do for, say, 5 minutes. So generate the intention for 5 minutes. I'll simply watch my breath. And inevitably, you'll find your mind wandering, thinking about other things. So just be prepared for that from the beginning. And with the corner of your mind, so with the main part of your mind, say 70%, 80% of your mental attention, try to continually keep it directed at your breath, being fully aware of the process of breathing. But with the corner of your mind, like 20, 30% of your mental attention, kind of monitor yourself to see if you're actually watching your breath or not, to keep track of that. And when you see that you're not, when you're thinking about something else, you want to catch yourself as quickly as possible. And then remind yourself that this is a time for meditation, time for watching this object of meditation, the breath. And then that, whatever you're thinking about, you can spend time thinking about that during the other 23 hours and 55 minutes of the day, right? So during any other time. So let those thoughts go for now, and or whatever other perceptions arise, just think to let them go for now, and bring your attention back to the breath. So you have to do that again and again and again. But each time you want to try to be continually mindful of the process of breathing for as long as possible. And then when you see your attention wandering off, to pay attention to something else, thinking about something else. And try to catch that as soon as possible, and let that wandering mind go, let the object of that wandering mind just go, and bring your attention back to simply watching the breath. Okay? So try to practice like that for about 5 minutes, beginning now. the next step is to generate a positive motivation. So that means thinking about why we're doing whatever we're doing. So in any activity we're doing, we have a reason for doing that activity. So we want to have a good reason, a positive reason. So especially in spiritual practice, Dharma practice, at the beginning of a meditation session, at the beginning of a teaching session, we want to think about what our motivation is. So basically it entails what are our goals, a short-term, a long-term goal, for the purpose of whom am I doing this, just for myself alone, or for also my family and friends, or for all the world, for the benefit of the entire world. And then if we want to specify anything within that, we can also do so. So I invite you now for just a couple minutes, think about your reasons for engaging in this session today. Why did you come? And why are you here still? Why are you engaging in this session? What are your short-term, long-term goals? So try to think about how you wish to benefit yourself, benefit others, and bring benefit, some well-being to the entire world, beginning with yourself. So generate a positive motivation for a couple minutes. so we can relax our meditation there. So to say a few words about the topic tonight, the rat race. Yeah, so in preparing for the talk, I was thinking about what are the different kinds of rat race. What do we mean when we say, oh, you know, it's a rat race, or in a rat race? Yeah. Well, I was thinking, you know, like kind of when we're younger, we're in school. Probably, I mean, we probably don't have that feeling when we're in elementary school, hopefully. But by the time we're in college, usually high school or college, then we start to feel more stress, you know, more pressure, and feel like competition. Especially when we're taking exams, or you know, we're looking at the results of our, you know, grades are coming out at the end of the year. Then there can be a feeling, I know I used to have in college, a feeling of like, you know, if I don't do so well, if I'm not in a certain percentile, a certain rank, if I don't get a certain degree, then I'm going to fall behind everyone else. End up kind of being a failure in my life, not getting a good job, not having a good career, not getting hired, and then kind of end up, you know, in the US, like flipping burgers at McDonald's, we say, you know, like end up with a total menial kind of job and unable to do much in life. So there's, you know, a sense of pressure to do well, to perform, which means performing well in comparison to other people, which means competing, right, with others around you. That's one kind of, you know, I remember once in college, probably must have been probably my senior year, waking up in the middle of the night, like I had a nightmare that I, you know, it was actually coming to the end of the semester, end of the term, and we had to submit these big, you know, big long research papers and projects, and you know, that semester I think I was taking an extra course, so you're trying to juggle a lot of different things, you know, preparing for this exam and writing this term paper and submitting this report and, you know, making sure this other paperwork is done on time and stuff like that. So I had this nightmare one night that I'd completely forgotten about one term paper until like the day before it was due. I just suddenly remembered I had this like 20-page term paper due the next day. And in the nightmare, I mean, I completely thought it was real. So I broke out like a cold sweat. I was like totally kind of frantic, and I woke up kind of beating the sheets and in a cold sweat, and then realized like I had just woken up, that it was just a dream, thank God. But that's, I mean, that's kind of typical of feeling a lot of pressure, feeling a lot of stress, anxiety, having a lot of anxiety about all these different tasks we're trying to juggle, and feeling like we're just barely able to kind of stay ahead, to, you know, keep ahead of everything collapsing. So in college, there's kind of, you can kind of feel like it's a rat race, like you're competing with others for, you know, some specific goals, and there's all this, you know, due to not your own choice. I mean, you chose to be in the program, but then there's all these demands put on you by, you know, different professors, different teachers, by your family, by your own self-expectations of how you should be able to perform, and maybe not being able to live up to those. So when you're college, it's like that. Then you graduate from college, and then you have to try to, you know, start a career, find a job, and then again you're in competition with a whole bigger group of people who have graduated from all these different universities and colleges, and you're all competing for, you know, getting the new entry-level positions at the same different companies. And you don't know what other people's resume looks like compared to yours, and what other people do in the job interview or not. You go to all these interviews, and you don't know what the employer really wants. You don't have work experience, so how do you get a job? But then, if you don't get a job, how do you get experience? It's like catch-22s you have to jump through. So then, and then if you don't get a job, then again, a decent job, you end up like, you know, mowing lawns, and then where do you go from there? You know, there's only so far you can go up in the lawn care industry. That's really big in the U.S. because people have a lot of large yards. Here, I think you can become like a chaiwala, right? So once you become a chaiwala, like there's only so far you can go up being a chaiwala. Like there's not much room for advancement. Prime Minister, well, you can become a prime minister. Yeah, that's true. You're very fortunate somehow. Or maybe you can develop a chai point, you know? Open chai stands on all the airports around India. And around the world, eventually, I hope. So, yeah, but that's a positive way to look at it, is, you know, you have to think of the bright side. That's part of the rat race, is you feel like it's hard to see the potential positive outcome, rather than you feel like you're just staying above water all the time. You're just kind of making ends meet. You're not able to think about the real opportunities that exist right in front of your face, because you're too busy just trying to struggle to survive, right? But yeah, even being a Chaiwan, there's infinite possibilities for what you could do. So then, yeah, after college, there's competition, you know, to get a job. Then once you get a job, then there's competition with other people in your workplace to get advancement, you know, within your workplace. And so there's a sense, you know, if I don't please this person, if I don't play the politics right, if I'm not, you know, don't hang out with this group of people, or don't, you know, don't get a good review at the end of this, you know, this quarter or something, or don't make a certain profit margin, or don't fulfill my sales goals, then I'm going to fall behind, and these other people are going to pull ahead, and then I'm going to be left kind of at the bottom again. So then, and then even if you do well in your career, so there's, I mean, I guess on one hand, you could even do well in your career and, you know, end up making a lot of money, having, you know, a lot of high standing in your field, whatever field of work you do in your company, or whatever field you're in. And then you get to the middle of your life, like 45, 50, and you kind of realize you have all the stuff you wanted, maybe a good spouse, a good house, a good car, good job, you know, good standing, respect from people, but you're still not, you still don't feel fulfilled. You still don't feel fulfilled, right? You still don't feel happy. You still feel like there's something missing, right, in your life. Like you haven't really done anything you really enjoy. I mean, first, that's one kind of possibility. Another possibility is that, like, you know, you don't do well in your career. You just kind of, you know, your career just, you have unfortunate circumstances, you know, lose your job or have physical, you know, challenges, get sick or get injured somehow, or, you know, business gets taken over, you get laid off and you can't find another good job, or whatever. Maybe your career doesn't go well and you end up again in the middle of your life and you kind of wonder, well, what's the whole point anyway? You know, trying to struggle, and it seems like if you have bad luck, you never succeed. So much depends on luck, really, not necessarily skill. So then, it's another kind of, yeah, but you feel stuck in a rat race. Another, I think, symptom of feeling like you're in a rat race is feeling like you don't have control of your life, like you're stuck in, you know, you have obligation to, maybe spouse or family have obligation to the expectations of, you know, your extended family or your acquaintances or your own kind of things, the ideas you've been habituated to since you were very young, and you're part of the society, so you're part of this economy, so you have to pay the mortgage, you have to pay your rent, you have to pay, you know, for support your spouse and children, you have to support yourself, have to save up for when you're old age, because old age is coming. And then, you know, and you have to pay taxes, and you have to pay for insurance, health insurance, or car insurance, or whatever, house insurance. So there's all these demands on you, and to do that, you have to, you know, work a job. You have to work 9 to 5, you know, it's 5 days a week, 6 days a week. So you feel like there's no freedom, you know. You don't have really space to make much decision about what to do, how to live your life, because you have to kind of follow all these, kind of the system, you know, have to live according to the way things have been set up by you know, political forces, economic forces that are totally out of your hands, the way things have just come to be like this. So sometimes we find ourselves dreaming of like hunters and gatherers in the past, you know, who just wander through the jungle and pick berries and nuts out and, you know, dig roots and just kind of, you know, eat simple food, live in simple dwellings, but have a kind of free life. Although it's probably a romantic ideal, because, yeah, if you look at the data on hunters and gatherers, it's like a totally brutal, violent kind of existence, in large part. yeah, so that's kind of my idea of what the rat race is. So then some of the ways, yeah, some of the ideas I have, maybe I'll just present briefly, for how to kind of improve things, deal with all these different situations in a better way. Yeah. One is, well, where to start? There's basically about, say, 3 or 4 different things I was thinking to just talk about briefly. One is that just to look at the nature of life, you know, and to have a more realistic view. Sometimes we suffer a lot more because we have unrealistic expectations about how things should be, right? So sometimes just to have a more realistic idea about how things will be helps just accept difficulties in stride, you know, to take them more in stride. So one is more, I mean, and that's kind of the first thing the Buddha taught, was actually that samsara is in the nature of suffering, right? That we shouldn't expect happiness just to come all the time, because actually that's totally unrealistic, that expectation that, not that our lives have to be miserable and unhappy, not at all. Rather, of course, we're seeking happiness, but actually a first step to happiness can sometimes be just having a more realistic idea about what to expect, right? Having more realistic expectations for what's going to happen to us. Yeah, so that includes looking at how things are impermanent, and looking at what things, of the factors that affect the quality of life we have, which are in our hands and in our control, and what are those that are out of our control. Right? So if we have expectations that the things that are out of our control should go a certain way, it's totally unrealistic because they're out of our control. So rather we have to identify the things that we can do that are in our control and focus on those. Right? So yeah, so one is having more realistic expectations about the nature of kind of the situation that we're in. Another is just recognizing that, yeah, we have forces of good and bad like within us. So, and everything, you know, every time we make a decision, it's like we're kind of choosing whether to follow more kind of destructive tendencies or more constructive tendencies that we have. You know, whether to follow the good, go in direction of the good, or go in direction of the bad. I'm mixing up my directions here with my left and right hand, but you get the idea, right? So we all have forces of good. The idea I want to talk about, we all have forces of good and bad within us, and it helps to like think about those clearly and think, well, what is it, you know, what are the positive forces I have within me? How can I cultivate those more? And then what are the negative forces I have within me? What do I have to be wary of, and try to notice when it arises and avoid and not follow those tendencies. So here we're talking about things like, you know, the tendency to become angry and short-tempered and irritable and inconsiderate of other people. It's kind of like bad. It's going to bring just more disturbance and destruction and abrasion and unpleasant experiences in our life, right? You know, the tendency to be dishonest, for example, versus the tendency to be honest, to be open, to be concerned about others, to be patient, and to be kind and loving, on the other hand, right? So we all have the potential to be either of those, and we are both of those at different times in our life, but it's good to try to distinguish. So this is basic mental health, right? Looking at positive mental states versus negative mental states and kind of choosing between them. And then another is just, which is probably the first thing I want to speak about, maybe I'll just make this the third and last, is just making space, you know, to think about things, to take a step back, sort of go up on the proverbial mountain, and just look at what's going on. Because I think another big symptom of like feeling like we're in a rat race, because you think about literally like rats, I mean rat race, literally what does the expression come? I suppose from lab rats, right? Racing lab rats to check their health or something. So you think in a laboratory, if scientists are studying like the health of rats, then they probably race them up and down tracks. But you've seen, you know, kind of videos about rats. Usually the rats, they have no idea what's going on, right? They're just in in a lap, then there's a track, and they just kind of run, trying to run to the other end as fast as they can, probably because they've been starved for a few days and there's some food at the other end and they can smell it. So they have no idea like what they're doing. They have no, we're looking from above, like, oh, and there's these rats down here and they're running, and oh, how funny. But the rats have no sense of like what the environment that they're in, why they're doing what they're doing. They're just kind of following their instinct to find food, right? So I think that's another symptom of the human rat race, is not having a sense of why you're doing what you're doing. You're just being kind of blinded, right? And just going ahead as fast as you can and becoming exhausted and not really having a sense of what you're aiming for in the long term, and what's the meaning of this whole exercise, right? So actually, so I think a good, to reduce the sense of that, it's important to stop and think about like what we're doing with our life. I mean, to stop and think about life and death. I mean, this is very true for many people. They just kind of live, they're born, they grow up, they become an adult, and then they have a career, a family, and their old age, and then they find they're dying. They get cancer, and then they're lying on their deathbed and looking back at their life and realizing like that's the first time they've ever done that. Just look at their life and think about like, what is the meaning of life? Like, what was the purpose of my life? So we want to do that before we're old and dying. Actually, that's a big part of why for me personally, like that's a big part of why I became a monk, is because when I was a young adult, when I was in my mid-20s, I had cancer. I was diagnosed with cancer at one point. And then I went through surgery and chemotherapy and radiation therapy. But for about 9 months, I was really, I had about 15 to 20% of 15 to 20% chance of not surviving that cancer, right, of dying at my mid-20s. So for about 9 months, I was really like thinking about death a lot, really seriously thinking about, well, because even if I died from that cancer, I would have had about a year to live, right, before I died from the cancer, probably. So for about 9 months, I was really thinking like every day about like, well, if I'm going to die in a year from now, then what do I want to do? If this is going to be the end of my life, then what is it that I don't want to leave out? So to me, each person will have their own way of thinking about it, but that helps a lot to think about death. The fact that this life doesn't last forever. We're all going to die eventually. That's the only way the life ends, and we don't know when that's going to happen, right? So I find that thinking about death is like a great filter. It helps filter out all the frivolous stuff and all the small stuff and all the unimportant kind of superficial things that we often get caught up, in day to day, minute to minute, hour to hour, we get caught up in, and all those small things kind of, it's like they short circuit our ability to think about the big picture and what's really important to me. So thinking about death helps filter out all those things, the fact of our demise, and not only our own death, but the death of people that are close to us, that are our loved ones, our siblings, our parents, our children, if we have children, or our friends, that all of us are going to die eventually. So thinking about the fact of one's own impermanence and death, and the death of those around us, the fact of that, it helps kind of filter out all the small, petty kind of things that we get caught up in a lot. So that's one way of kind of trying to take a different perspective from higher up. Instead of being caught. Another kind of way to think about the rat race is more like the hamster wheel. Like in a hamster's just running on a wheel. That they're just running, but it's not going anywhere, right? So another reason for that is because we don't have a sense of what we want to achieve. We're just living like day to day or month to month or year to year, just with only short-term goals, without a sense of any long-term goal that we're really aiming for. So a way to have that is to step back and think about, like, what is it I want to achieve in my life? If I have, say, I'm 20 years old now, say I'm 30 years old now, if I'm going to live till 80, that means I have 50 years left. So in 50 years, what do I want to achieve in my life? If we believe that this life is all that exists, then what's most important to me in my life? Do I want to, do I want to make $1 million, or do I want to, have a huge family with, 8 or 10 kids and just enjoy that? Or do I want to eventually, buy a house out in the countryside and just spend my time gardening, or, raising dogs, or whatever. Like, but if we don't have any long-term goal, then it's like, a lot of times, often we find that we never really think about what we want for ourselves, but rather we're always a slave of other expectations, like from our parents. Some people just pushed into a career by their parents, like their parents were doctors, so they just assume, and they want their children to be doctors, so they just become a doctor. But halfway through their career being a doctor, they realize they actually hate, like, dealing with sick people all the time. They'd rather do, they'd rather be out in the forest or something like that. I don't know. Or some people, they're pushed into a relationship, with a husband or a wife by their parents, and then they don't like that. Or sometimes not by our parents necessarily, but by just society. We're bombarded with these messages from society all the time, especially through advertising, and on TV shows and movies, that, we need to be physically attractive, we need to be, in our 20s or 30s always. We need to have a great house, we need to be well-dressed, we need to smell good, we need to have, our hair a certain way, we need to have certain kind of jewelry, clothes, we need to have, certain kind of accessories, like, watch and phone, and drive a car and wear shoes that are actually too long, and, all kind of things. And then again, we can kind of follow along with that all up to a point, but maybe at some point it becomes, we realize, like, that's not really bringing me kind of the satisfaction, the kind of joy, the happiness that I want in life. So another reason to kind of step back from things is to get in touch with ourselves, instead of just blindly following all these messages that we hear in the media or hear from our family or from our peers. Then kind of look within our own mind and see, like, well, who am I really? What do I really like? What are my proclivities? What are my desires? What are my deepest kind of yearnings? So it's, I think, different ways of stepping back, like saying, one is to think about death. One is actually physically go to a remote place, do things alone sometimes. Like literally, if you go to the a high place, the top of a mountain, that's how you get. Say you live in a valley, but you never go up on the mountain. It's like you're always just kind of, you can only see up to the tree line or immediately around you. You can never really get a sense of the whole landscape you live in. Whereas if you go up on a mountain quickly, you can see all around, get a sense of the lay of the land where you are, and then have more of a sense of, okay, I belong here. This is where I want to be, or because I can see what it's like over there, and I see what it's like over there, and I see what it's like over there, and I like it here. Then you make a conscious choice about the situation that you're in, rather than just feeling like you've fallen into that situation without ever having had a chance to make any choice about it yourself, right? So it can help physically to go up, in a high place, or just spend time alone. Like take yourself get away from your family, or get away from your peers once in a while, maybe once a year. Some people do travel to some place that you've never been, just by yourself, or take a walk, or make time to do things, even if you don't want to travel somewhere. Just make time to do things by yourself, whether it be a hobby, or going for a walk, or exercising, or of course, here we promote meditation, right? So meditating is a great way to just make space, because it's not a group activity. Of course you can do it as a group, but even as members of the group, even if we're meditating like this, as a group, It's not like, you know, I'm meditating for you and you're meditating for me. We're each just supporting each other and looking within ourselves. No? It's not like I'm looking within you and you're looking within me. We're each just, you know, agreeing that we're going to spend time like this, where we're each giving each other kind of permission or the opportunity to look within ourselves. So you can meditate alone, you can meditate in a group, do a retreat. Like personally, I like to, it's, I mean, invaluable to me to do a personal meditation retreat for, say, 2 weeks or 1 month every year. For me, that's like the best holiday, you know? Get away from my university, my monastic university where I study, get away from the people I usually live with, get out of touch with my family. Well, I'm usually, you know, my family in the United States, I'm usually in touch with, and I turn off my phone, stay off the net, and just spend time alone in a retreat center, doing my own thing, totally alone. Right? To me, that's the best way to recharge my batteries. But, you know, whatever you like to do, to like kind of pull yourself out of your normal situation and out of your normal kind of network of people you're in touch with, and try to just spend time getting in touch with yourself to find out what you really want. I mean, that's one way to get perspective on things and try to generate a sense of long-term goals and also more intentionality about what you want to do with your life. And think about, you know, how to approach the situation that you're in. Maybe you just can't suddenly change the situation, the family situation, or work situation you're in. Probably can't just suddenly change it, but there can be different ways to approach it so that you, instead of feeling like you're controlled by the situation, you feel like you're using the situation to achieve what you want to achieve, right? Okay, so one way to do that, though, in a very simple way, is just to meditate every day. Take time, take 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the evening to sit quietly in your home. You know, make a place to meditate. And then, you know, spend time just looking within your own mind. First, do some breathing meditation, generate a good motivation. And then, I mean, one kind of meditation is called analytical meditation, where you analyze different questions and different issues. So, of course, there's a whole set of different kind of issues, like, for example, the fact of death is one huge thing you can meditate on. But that kind of meditation, it doesn't have to be about fixed topics or issues or done in a fixed way, but you can just look to see, well, what are the things weighing on my mind most now? And just spend time, you know, thinking about that, but in a very calm, deliberate, quiet manner, rather than just trying to think about it while you're driving or while you're riding in the metro or while you're doing something else in a distracted way. But really focusing your attention, generating a positive motivation, and then thinking about the things that are troubling you or things that are important to you, or you know, difficult situations you're facing at that time in your life, and then if you're kind of a religious person, you have some religious beliefs, then invoke the blessing of whatever you believe in, you know, whether it be Krishna or Vishnu or you know, or Buddha or Jesus or Allah or whatever. If there's a faith tradition that you're part of, invoke the blessing of that tradition to help bring guidance, you know, into your mind. But it's important to do regularly. Meditation is like exercise. Like if you do regularly, then you see progress. If you just do occasionally and then don't do it for a long time and then do again, of course it's good, you feel good, but you don't make substantial progress. You just kind of, it can be like a therapeutic technique just to help you deal with things a little bit, but you don't really see significant kind of transformation. But if you do regularly, you definitely, you get more control of your mind. Which brings us to the next thing, right? So the first thing I wanted to suggest about dealing with the rat race is just make space for yourself. Try to get perspective. Try to look at the big picture and try to think about your long-term goals and come more in touch with what you really want to get out of life, and make sure that doesn't get left out in the mix of all the little things that you have to take care of. Make sure you take care of the big things that are, meaning the things that are most important to you. So then the next thing is looking at how we have these forces of good and bad within us. So yeah, I mean, the Buddha said, I mean, the when he summed up all of his own teachings, he summed up like this: do not commit any non-virtuous action, perfect every virtue, subdue your own mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha. Right? So basically, the first two lines are talking about the good and bad, right? Do not commit any non-virtuous action. Basically it means don't do anything that harms others, that harms yourself or harms others. Non-virtuous actions are actions which harm others. Like, I mean, the easy ones to identify are like lying to people, intentionally deceiving people, killing, of course, killing human beings, killing animals, stealing, adultery, sexual misconduct, slander other people. So of course there's physically harming others, verbally harming others using abusive language, abusive speech, but even mentally harming others. Having anger is like a way of mentally harming. When we're angry, having negative intentions, wishing for others, wishing for harm to befall others, right? Wishing for others, wishing to belittle others, or having hateful thoughts towards others. It's mentally harming. Actually it's harming ourselves more than anyone else, but it's a very destructive attitude. So we can engage in destructive actions with our body, with our speech, with our mind. So identifying those ways that, and we all do. It's not like none of us are totally pure and blameless. Like we all, from time to time, engage in actions which are harmful, to others. Gossiping and belittling others, or having really just negative thoughts about others. Really, in the end, it harms us, right? But so that's the first line that the Buddha is saying. Avoid. Do not commit any negative action. Do not commit any negative action or destructive action. So we have to identify the most obvious and gross ones first, and then look at the more and more subtle, and try to, as much as we can, abandon harming others at all, and ourselves. And then the second one, perfect every virtuous action. So look at the good, right? So abandon the bad, and then look at what are the good things that we do. Again, you can divide up into physical, verbal, and mental. Right? All of our actions are either physical actions or verbal actions or mental actions. So physically, what can we do to help others? Not just when we're around others physically, smiling, having a peaceful expression, physically showing that we care, that we're concerned about others, and refraining from hitting or even threatening to hit. Then it makes people feel safe around us. We all remember when we're adolescents, especially the guys. When you punch your friends and shove them and grab them and trip them, or even just fake like you're going to hit them. Then of course it's fun, and you're playing around. But there is a sense that you can never really feel, if you have a friend that always like punches you or trips you or something, or you do that back to them, you're always on edge. You always have to be alert because they might do that, right? So you can never really be totally at ease around the person. So of course, mostly as we grow up, we stop doing those things. But that's just an example of how when other people feel physically threatened by us, then we destroy the peace around us, right? Whereas if we have a subdued way of using our body, also a subdued way of using our speech, then other people feel safe around us. They feel comfortable around us, right? So then we're giving peace to those people. We're giving peace of mind to people around us by controlling our body and controlling our speech, right? So then look at how we talk to others. Do we talk to others in an arrogant kind of belittling way, or do we talk to others, even maybe others who are serving us, like the auto rickshaw driver, or who are in a lower position to us, or depending on us for some way? Do we take advantage of that situation to treat them in a way that we wouldn't treat, a peer, an equal, or a family member, or someone higher than us? By belittling them or speaking to them in a way that's disrespectful or very condescending, or I was thinking unfairly demanding, being unfairly demanding just to kind of put them down, or do we treat them with with respect? Do we treat them with kindness? Yeah, so distinguish between those two. And then with our mind also, what kind of thoughts do we have towards other people? Do we have thoughts that are malevolent and irritable and belittling, or do we have thoughts towards others that are generous and kind and patient and rejoicing in the wholesome activities of others, or are we jealous? Right? So the Buddha is saying basically abandon all these negative actions of body, speech, and mind, and perfect all the positive actions of body, speech, and mind. How do we do that? By subduing our own mind, right? Because all of our actions of our body and our speech, they all begin with our intention, right? Even from picking up a glass of water, something as simple as that, it doesn't happen without the intention. It's the intention that causes the arm to raise. So speaking any words that we speak, before we speak, there's some intention to speak. Otherwise, the speech doesn't happen. Right? So everything, all of our actions begin with what's in our mind. So how do we then abandon going towards destructive, bad actions and increasing positive actions? Is by spending time, by subduing our own mind. How do we subdue our own mind? Again, by becoming familiar with, but first we have to have wisdom, understanding how our mind works, understanding what's in our mind. For many people, their whole lives, they never really sit down and look at their own mind. They just kind of follow their instinctual, whatever thought that comes, they just kind of follow that. They're always thinking kind of on the go, and never really. And oftentimes we have the sense that we are who we are. It's fixed. Like the way we think, the way we feel. That's just how we are. There's nothing we can do about it. That's just the way my parents raised me, or that's the way, I am from birth, or that's just kind of how I am. Whereas actually that's not the case. Even you look at, modern neuroscience shows that there's this, in the last 20 years, yes, thank you, Sadhana, neuroplasticity. There's neuroplasticity. Sadhana is an old student, so. Yeah. I'm not speaking very slowly. You're filling in very fast. No? If I'm pausing for a few seconds, then fill in. But yeah, maybe usually I speak faster than this. I don't know. Yeah, there's neuroplasticity. So there used to be in neuroscience. There used to be the idea that by about the time you're 20 or in your mid-20s, your brain circuitry is fixed. So basically, you can't really change much about how you act, how you think after that, because according to neuroscience, materialistic view, everything you think and feel is determined by activity in your brain. So if your neurowiring is hardwired at that point, if it's fixed, then you can't change anything about the way you think or feel because your brain doesn't change. Whereas actually that's now known to be not the case. Actually, we can change depending on how we direct our attention and what we try to do. If we try to learn a new language, even when we're 60, 70, we can still do that, and we can create new neural pathways that didn't exist before. And the old neural pathways that existed, they're much more plastic and flexible and malleable than was once thought. So we can continue. Just according to neuroscience, we can continue changing our whole life. According to Buddhism, actually, there's not this hard materialistic view. It's not that everything we think and act and feel is dependent on our neurocircuitry. Of course, there's a strong correlation. But Buddhist view is more like, well, the mind, if you look at the mind is by nature just clear and knowing, right? There's no fixed thought in your mind. If there was, then you would have that thought all the time. And there's no fixed pattern of thought that you necessarily have to have. So any pattern of thought that you have, any pattern of emotional way of reacting to different situations that you have, all of it can change. It's all impermanent and changeable. All arises in dependence upon certain causes and conditions. So if you change the causes and conditions, then you change the result. So everything, whether we're angry, we can become, if we have a lot of anger, we become less angry. We can become less angry, more patient. If we're jealous, we become, more, less attached or less kind of, resentful of others' success, and just learn to rejoice in that success. So any mental kind of habit that we have, it's changeable. It's all changeable. Subhashini, can I call you to testify? Is that true? Subhashini has been coming here. How old were you when you first started coming to the center, Subhashini? Can I ask? Is that okay? Yeah. Yeah. And have you changed in that time? I think so, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. So it's never too late to start learning something new, no? But yeah, so the Buddha said, abandon any negative actions whatsoever, perfect every virtue, subdue your own mind. This is the way of the Buddha. This is the teaching of the Buddha. So another way to kind of reduce our sense that we're in a rat race is to have a clear sense also about, well, what are destructive actions that I engage in? What are constructive, positive actions I engage in? And have a sense, whatever situation in our family life, in our work life, among our friends and peers, we can use any situation to try to reduce, our negative habits and improve and increase our positive qualities of mind, right? And then that will naturally improve our quality of life. Here, the basic observation that Buddha's teaching is based on is just looking at the fact, and this is something it really helps to look at again and again and think about and remind ourselves of again and again and again, is that all of us, all the human beings, myself, all the other human beings I deal with, all the other creatures that exist, and the animals and whatever kind of creature that exists that has a mind like I do, we're all the same in that we want well-being, we want happiness. There's nobody who doesn't want happiness or well-being in some form. And everything that we do can be explained by striving for happiness. Unfortunately, many of us have totally distorted ideas about what brings well-being and happiness, totally unrealistic ideas, that wealth or power or influence or infinite sexual gratification or food or constant distraction or going from place to place. We all have all kinds of distorted ideas about what really brings lasting happiness and well-being, and therefore we end up being disappointed again and again and again, becoming exhausted, trying to chase after things that we think will bring us happiness, but then we find they actually don't, and we just lead into a whole other set of problems that were totally unforeseen, right? But there's a fundamental truth that we're all the same in wanting happiness on the one hand, and wanting to be free from harm, wanting to be free from suffering and misery, right? In some way. So if we relate to others in that way, if we can know that about ourselves, first of course, you have to check to see if that's true or not. But if we relate to everybody else that way, then instead of feeling distant from and in competition with others, we recognize that actually we're all striving for the same thing, essentially. To be happy, to be peaceful, to have enjoyment, and to have long-term kind of well-being and happiness, and to be free from suffering. And then that gives us a sense of closeness with others, rather than feeling like everyone else is a stranger and we're all alone in the world, just trying to accomplish what our survival all on our own. Rather, if we that's totally unrealistic. We need others to accomplish whatever welfare we have, whatever welfare we want, whatever goals we want to achieve. We need to cooperate with others, and that depends on kind of knowing the basics about others. And the most fundamental thing about ourselves, about others, is wanting the happiness, wanting to be free from suffering. And then the last thing I'll just say a couple words about, because I've already been talking longer than I was planning to, but the last thing is just that, it was the first thing I mentioned of the three, right? So getting a more kind of broad perspective, looking at the big picture, and looking at what we really want, and then distinguishing between negative and positive kind of forces within ourselves and in our actions. And then the last thing is having more realistic, not having unrealistic expectations, having more realistic expectations. So, one unrealistic expectation is that we grasp at permanence. We grasp at things, we grasp at ourselves remaining in the way we are, not changing, right? Or the grossest kind of grasping at permanence is thinking that we're going to exist forever, right? Thinking that we'll never die, that we'll always be alive, just like we are. We're alive as this person we are right now, that will always be like that. And that, you know, the other people who are in our lives, our parents, our siblings, our friends, that they'll always be there. That's totally unrealistic, right? Of course, it's not pleasant to look at in one way, but in another way, if we don't look at that reality, then we never really have a sense of the value of being alive and having, you know, the time to spend with the other people who we care about in our lives. You know, if we think about the fact that opportunity won't last, that situation won't last forever, then in contrast, it makes the time we have together so much more precious and seems so much more valuable, and really bring it home to us that we need to make, you know, we need to use that in the best possible way, and not just kind of waste it in bickering about, you know, senseless things. So that's one way of having more realistic expectations, expecting, you know, that death is going to happen. Another kind of realistic expectation is expecting that things are going to change. You know, even death doesn't happen, but things are not going to remain the way they are. Things change. That's out of our control. You look at the natural world. Like even if it's, you know, it's a nice, sunny, like warm morning, no matter how much we want the sun to just kind of remain like only that high, not, you know, when it gets up this high, it's really hot, right? But when it's here, it's like it's nice sun, nice light, and not warm, but not, you know, not too hot. So no matter how much we want the sun to remain there, it's not going to remain there. Like inevitably, it's going to go up there and then over there. So just like in the natural world, we don't have the expectation that things are going to remain static, because we just see them changing all the time. But we should know that, you know, also in our work situation, in our family situation, you know, what other people think about us, for example, we cannot control what other people think about us. Whatever we do, some people are going to approve and some people are going to criticize. Like, you can't control that. And even like in business, trying to make a profit, we can't control all the forces in the market. There's infinite forces. So if you have a shop and you're trying to sell hardware or whatever, you can't control if, like, you know, Amazon starts selling all of your stock at like half the price that you sell it, that you can possibly sell it for. Then, you know, that's just basically sometimes unpleasant circumstances are going to come. It's inevitable. And sometimes, you know, things that we're attached to, circumstances that we want, that we like, and want to remain, we're going to be separated from them. That's just the nature of samsara. That's the nature of life. So sickness is going to come, old age is going to come. Separation from, you know, loved ones, separation from wealth, separation from status and power, inevitably it's going to come. And also meeting with, you know, people that we don't like, meeting with sickness, meeting with circumstances, you know, meeting with misfortune, having unlucky events. It's going to happen. Yeah. So just to have that expectation right from the beginning, then it makes, okay, when it happens, then you think, okay, yeah, that's the way things are. It's easier to accept rather than having a lot of resentment about it, you know. So like whatever valuable possessions you have, expect to be separated from them, you know, sooner or later. Of course, if we're careful, then we won't, you know, drop our phone in the toilet, or, you know, break it, or leave it in an auto rickshaw or something and lose it. But, you know, eventually it's going to get a virus, or it's going to drop and break, or, you know, something is going to get old and you get cluttered up with, you know, it doesn't work anymore, and we have to get a new one. So there's no point being attached to, you know, overly attached to. Attachment doesn't mean that, you know, giving up attachment doesn't mean we can't enjoy things. It means not having unrealistic expectation about the satisfaction that things, you know, bring to us. So yeah, it also means even when we have, you know, food or clothes or a partner or you know, a job, enjoy it while you have it, because it's not going to last forever. And even if you know, you remain together with that, eventually it's not going to satisfy you in the way that it did at first, right? You'll get tired of it, and you'll need to find something else to bring the same kind of satisfaction again. So having that kind of realistic expectation about not putting this unrealistic burden on other things to please us, and also realizing that external things, other people can't make us happy. things, wealth cannot make us happy, power cannot make us happy, all these things outside of us, material comfort, it doesn't really bring us ultimate satisfaction, no matter how delicious food we have. Okay, we can eat it and eat it and eat it, but eventually it's just going to be the same old food. Like, I mean, satisfaction is a state of mind, right? It's a mental experience. So the most direct way to generate, well-being and happiness is to do so with our mind, instead of always chasing at external things that bring some kind of temporary satisfaction and temporary comfort. Is to find a way of generating happiness and joy in our own mind. And paradoxically, the best way to do that is to stop being so obsessed about what I want, what we want, but rather and trying to do endless things to achieve my own short-term well-being, but to be more concerned about others. Paradoxically, the more we're concerned about others and using our lives to serve others and to achieve. Saka's using his life to serve dogs. That's the purpose of his life, is to bring happiness to dogs. He's very good at it. That's why one dog just followed him. That's why. They know, if they want happiness, he's the man to go to. For dogs. So,
I wish it extended beyond dogs too.
Yeah, eventually, yeah. This life dogs, next life elephants, next life whales, next life humans.
I was referring to the God realms and the formless realms.
Okay, maybe, yeah, you keep trying. But yeah, paradoxically, the best way to find satisfaction and well-being in our own life is to stop thinking about exclusively our own kind of deal alone and use our life to benefit others. Be more concerned about others and our friends, our family, our peers, just the world at large. We see ourselves as a servant to others, a servant to the world. That brings the greatest satisfaction. Yeah. Okay, so those are just my ideas, but we have almost 40 minutes left. So I want to hear now from you all who are really in the rat race, actually. Did I miss any of the major components? And what are some other aspects of the kind of what we call the rat race that you'd like to talk about?
So, just a thought.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I heard from you, it's more like we are doing things without much knowledge, if we are talking specifically about the rat race.
Mm-hmm.
And if we are not doing it consciously, in the sense that we don't realize what we are getting into, why we are getting into.
Mm-hmm.
And the third one, is it more of a, I would say, a feature of the material world that we are living?
Mm-hmm.
Why I say that is, if somebody is trying to live his or her life more of in a spiritual world, then will that also be called as a rat race, provided they are not doing it with the right knowledge and with the right consciousness. Is it more of a feature of material world than more of a spiritual world?
Yeah. What's your sense?
No, I feel it's more of a material world because when we chase those things, it brings more of negative emotions. Whereas if we are trying to, subconsciously and consciously as well, try to focus more on the spiritual being, then it brings positive emotion. And I don't think it's a race, and even if it is, it's a good race to be in.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think, when we talk about the rat race, it's usually talking about consumer, being part of consumer society, being materialistic, chasing after, money and things and status, and it can include fame and power. It's more kind of the ordinary things that sort of consumer society seems to promote. Whereas the spiritual, focusing life more in a spiritual way, we tend to see that those things are trivial, that those things are not so important, and rather, being a good person, being a kind-hearted person, being, mature, mentally, mature, and having some wisdom about what brings well-being in life. Those are more important. So yeah, it definitely helps to get out of the rat race. But even in a spiritual practice, we do, I mean, it can get into spiritual. There's this great term, spiritual materialism, where we even, you know, can start comparing ourselves to others and feeling like, oh, that person's low and I'm higher and I've been to more teachings and I have this more secret instruction I know, and I've met this guru and that guru, and bragging and being in competition with others. But that's also a danger, that we can fall into that kind of worldly way of leading the spiritual life. But that's not real. That's betraying the real essence of the spiritual life.
What I meant was that, like if somebody is born into a family where, let's say in a monk setup,
Monks don't have kids. They're not born. No monks are born, but
in around that, and then what I'm trying to say is that they think that this is my path, for instance. People will start getting into that thought. Instead of looking for a college degree, they say that, okay, this is my path. I mean, this is just an idea.
Sure.
Somebody is staying close to a temple, for instance, or in a town that is like that, then they think that, okay, this is my path. Is that a race? Is that a rat race?
No, not necessarily, of course. No, not necessarily. No, I was not saying the spiritual path is necessarily a rat race, but there's a danger, you know. We're not. That's why motivation is so important at the beginning of any practice. Like we spend a few minutes on the motivation, thinking sincerely about why am I doing this. You know, whatever I'm doing. Actually, as Buddhist practitioners, usually we spend a few minutes at the beginning of each day, thinking, everything I'm going to do today, why? For what purpose? What's my long-term goal? Is it just for me and my own desires? Is it just for my happiness of this life? Or do I have some longer-term goals, like the happiness of future lives, or liberation, or enlightenment, or in order to benefit? Am I thinking about just myself alone, or am I going to do the things I'm going to do today, for the betterment of all people, of the whole world? So every activity, and then we should try to remember our motivation, check our motivation again and again and again. Why am I doing it? Is it just for materialistic purposes, or some egoistic, self-centered purposes, or is it really for the well-being of all people? Then it helps to purify our actions. Other ideas?
Then I think you very beautifully summed it up. Yes, like sails in life, pretty aimlessly. Again, be mindful. Until something very dramatic happens and we are at the crossroads. Like you mentioned your illness. It's like a life-threatening illness, or a death, or losing your job. And then
or divorce.
Divorce, a breakup in a relationship. And it is at that time that we look upon things more objectively maybe, and prioritize what is important. What really matters. We're just sailing through pretty aimlessly.
That's true. That's one big symptom of the rat race. Is
and only acquisition, what you said, materialistic.
Not thinking seriously about what is the meaning of life.
Only for acquisitions, only acquiring more and more.
Yes. What about from some of the new people? What do you think?
I think I could sort of maybe follow what you're saying, because to some degree, I'm still part of the rat race, but I thought I should sort of disassociate myself from it. So I've sort of moved away from a full-time job. I'm trying to do some things that I more enjoy doing. But I understand even following that path comes with its own set of restlessness. So I think those are the thoughts that I'm processing. Because even if you do take the time to do what you want, or even if you do take the time to introspect, and then that has its own cycle of restlessness.
True. I don't think, getting out of the rat race, it definitely can mean, it can help to have a change in, changing job, changing career, changing living environment or lifestyle, but it doesn't necessarily entail that. I think the main thing is the state of mind, how you approach what you're doing. You can imagine someone in a very, very mainstream kind of corporate full-time, fully demanding job. But to them, it's just a job. It's like that's not the end-all, be-all. You could imagine two persons, like two persons working at, I don't know, what's a big company like Wipro or something, very high, like high level or highly engaged kind of job at a very big corporation, and one person like that, their whole identity is just like with that job. Like they are just the person who, I'm the manager, I work here, I work from this to this, I make this much money, and because of that I can take a vacation here, and I can buy this car, and I can do that. And like their whole mentality is just limited to like that kind of materialistic identity. Whereas another person can be, work the exact same job, doing the exact same work, but the mindset is like, this is, in my life at this time, this is what I've chosen, this is the career path I've chosen, this is what I'm doing, but this isn't all I am. I'm something much bigger than this. This, and I have to work this job for this amount of time, but actually, I have this whole inner world and these long-term goals. I'm trying to be a really good person. I'm trying to be a good father. I'm trying to be, really help the people I'm working with, help them to develop their careers. I want the company I'm doing to do something good in the world, do something, useful and productive in the world. And, after this job, I'm going to go on and, in my free time, maybe I do some spiritual practice or do social service or, try to spend quality time with my family, make my children good people that can also give something, be productive and give something good to the world, and my neighborhood or in my community, and even, next life, not next life, but necessarily, I'm trying to be a good person. I'm trying to do a good job in this job, but my main aim is not just the job. My main aim is to be the best person I can be, and working in this job is just part of that at this time, but this isn't the end-all be-all. So, in the first person, if they lose the job, it's like their whole identity is totally shattered. Their life is shattered because they totally identify with being this, this guy at this, this position, with this salary, at this company, And then when that ends, then it's like their whole life is shattered. Whereas the second person, okay, the company gets taken over and they get laid off, and they totally take it in stride, because that's not, in their own mind, that's not all they are. There's something much, their whole life mission is something much greater than that. The job was just part of that, right? So it totally depends on the mental perspective. And that the second person, then they can be like, yeah, okay, that happens. Takeovers happen. People get laid off. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with me, or I'm a bad person, and I just keep on do what I can. I find, okay, what else can I do? And then I just do that. And it's not, like actually I can say now, because I have a brother-in-law. My brother-in-law is from, my sister's husband is from Madras, from Chennai. Anyway, his father was in the banking sector, in the government banks, I think as State Bank of India. And he got up to quite a high managerial level in India. Like he was managing the bank branches for like a whole states. So he said there were only 6 people at his level, in that level back in the 80s, I think. But then through some internal politics, he was the person above them retired, so he was the most senior of the 6, and so he was in line to move up to be like, kind of the top dog in the whole country or something. Some very, very high level position. But then through some internal, politics and stuff, and he didn't get that position, and someone more junior to him rose up into that position, and then so he quit out of resentment. And then the rest of his life, he was just full of this resentment about that having happened. And that was like the drama that he would talk about again and again and again, about this, how he got cheated. He should have been this level, but he wasn't, and now he's just like nobody. And that he became totally depressed. The rest of his life he was drinking and just depressed and eternally resentful about that. Whereas he could have been like, okay, those people cheated me out of that position, but still, look at the glass half full. Still, I got up to that very high level. I didn't go to the next level, but whatever. There's 6 people. All of us can't go. And I retired, and I have a very comfortable life, and I have enough money. My kids have good education, and just be happy. Rather than ruining all of that good fortune with resentment, right? So I think whether we're living in the rat race, it really doesn't depend on externally necessarily the conditions that we're in, but more internally, what state of mind, how we see it, how we look at it.
But it depends, sir. I mean, if you have thought...
Let's give this young gentleman.
I'm sorry.
Please.
I do have a different opinion.
Please, yeah.
If you had thought the same way in the initial stages, he wouldn't have gone to that position. I mean, if people stay in comfort zones, they never go up. They stay in the same positions forever.
Yeah.
So possibly, if he had the same thoughts in the initial stages, he would have stuck there. I mean, it's that thought that made him go up, move positions. And then one bad move, he lost his.
Yeah.
But eventually, it's the thought that kept him moving positions.
Yeah, the ambition, kind of.
Right.
Yeah.
So we cannot say that, he should have done that, he should have taken that decision. Whatever he did was actually correct.
No, I wasn't saying he shouldn't have taken the decision. I was saying because him not being promoted was out of his hands. Right? It wasn't due to his lack of ambition or something.
It's not ethical actually.
No, it's not. That's true. It's not ethical. I'm not saying him being cheated out of that promotion. I'm not saying there was nothing wrong with that. Yeah, that's wrong. But if you're just endlessly resentful about that the rest of your life, you don't fix the situation and you just destroy your own happiness. That's what I'm saying. And I'm also not saying that ambition is wrong. No, we can be ambitious. That's fine. But I guess what I'm saying is,
maybe in fight back, he should have done better in life. Instead of going into depression, he could have fought back.
He could have fought back, but probably wouldn't have gone anywhere.
Or joined a rival bank and risen.
Yeah, actually he did. Yeah. I mean, he actually did tried to join a faculty at a university, but then he felt like they were just using him for his name and didn't really want him to do anything. Anyway, yeah.
That was a great example, and that made sense in this context.
Yeah.
But in your example, both the people that you took as examples, their view, one's running in the rat race, and the other one who's not, even the one who's not running in the rat race, is sort of, at least he's in that the right worldview, where he is a manager at a great company, and but he was earlier mentioning that if what you think is not the rat race and what you believe is not the rat race and what is good for you is not in the conventional things, then because you realize that and you're saying that, hey, I know I need to do this because I know I need to do this, and I can get back to the rat race later on if I have to, but you cannot sort of control your family and your friends and everyone you meet, because they're just why is this person so unconventional, or and that's sort of and since they are not going to quit their form of the rat race, they're going to try to pull. There's always this push and pull of hey, why aren't you in it? You should get back. You should. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true. But I mean, I ordered some honey a couple years ago. So I looked up online all the different, independent beekeepers to get honey from. And the one I eventually bought from, he was a guy. He was in the IT sector for some years and then was miserable, and then just quit that and went back to Tamil Nadu to raise bees.
There you go.
Yeah. So I'm sure, maybe a lot of his friends are what, you crazy? You're making so much money and now you're raising bees.
Right, exactly.
But you have to. I mean, we have to accept that other, like I said, some people are going to disapprove of whatever we do. You have to accept the other challenges that come. Having less money, maybe having less approval from your family, or having less support from your friends. But if you really believe that's the right thing to do, then and you really find that's fulfilling for you. If we're not happy, then we're not really going to be a source of happiness to people around us. If we're miserable, even if we have money and we have status and we have kind of social approval, but if we're miserable doing that, then we're just going to make our kids and our spouse and other people around us they're not going to take much joy from being with us. Whereas even if we do something that maybe doesn't have kind of social, it's not considered successful, but we're really joyfully doing that, we're really happy doing that, then other people will like being around us, and will give joy to other people around us. So that's also. Oh yeah, Sebastian, please.
There was this article recently in Times of India, and it was, I don't know whether it was an extract or completely written. I mean, it could have been taken out of the writings of, I can't pronounce that Vietnamese monk.
Thich Nhat Hanh. Thich Nhat Hanh. Thich Nhat Hanh.
TikTok hunk.
He, in that particular piece, it says, or he says, that we don't have to always be doing something, but just being itself. In a sense that just appreciating where you are, and that's what I gathered from that, what I read.
Yeah.
That people have this constant feeling that we should be doing something all the time.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
And he says, well, that's not important. Just being and it is enough. Or it doesn't have to create a kind of feeling that you are not doing something.
Yeah.
That you are not doing something or the other. Action.
Yeah.
Because we are so oriented towards being active, wanting to do this, that, whatever. But he says that is not important. It is being and maybe if you are in and you have a place in France, you can say that as
and a lot of disciples, and a lot of books published. Yeah. No, it's true though. That's one kind of attachment. It's being attachment to activity and attachment to production, producing something and showing, having some work to show.
The societal
speed. We're attached to speed. Also.
Kind of, which imposes on you this kind of thought or kind of idea, or giving it so much importance. You must be doing something.
Yeah.
If somebody isn't, you're not doing anything. That kind of thing.
Yeah. India's changing a lot that way, isn't it? I feel like, I've only been in India since 1999. But even in that time, you used to see a lot more people just, like in a village, you go to a village and people are quite comfortable just sitting around, just talking, not doing anything in particular. Especially in the nice hours of the day, in the morning, in the evening. But in the city, you don't see people doing that. It's not like you're just sitting outside your house, just talking. What a waste of time.
Another obsession, which today I find, is that everybody has to go to the gym.
Is it? Yeah.
When you're in your 30s or whatever. Particularly if you're in the software, in some head honcho or, if not head, whatever, earning fairly well and going abroad once in 6 months or 4 months, and all the time on some call or something, then you must go to the gym. And you must put your children into some different hobbies. Either they are learning how to dance, or my neighbor upstairs has a girl who goes to plays badminton every weekend in the Karnataka State, and the father also plays. So they have to be doing. Why can't they just sit at home on the weekend and relax?
Well, then they get high blood pressure and overweight.
Constantly.
I see. That can be part of the matter. It's being attached to this constant activity, doing something. Yeah. Okay. Point made. I think Saket has something to say now.
Venerable, I have a doubt concerning motivation. You see, I'm profoundly lucky, and so are all of us over here for whom a motivation has been set. I remember once even coming to meeting you there in Sera Je, and you said your motivation to become a Buddha. Fine. So that's excellent. That helps us overcome all the obstacles that come along the way.
Yeah.
Now my question is, along the way when I'm meeting people, especially in village, now I'm staying in a village, and I'm meeting a lot of people. And one thing I've noticed among those majority, 99.9% of the humans, is that even though we can have a motivation, they don't have motivation in life. Most people.
Yeah.
Is this lack of motivation, that what am I doing? They are lost. My question is, what can I tell them generally, not specifically, not that you become a Buddha. I cannot tell them that. I cannot tell them that, see, I am trying to tell them that you do not have a motivation, that they understand. But when the question comes up, then what motivation should I have? I cannot tell them you have the motivation to become a Buddha. That's where it's...
But that's fine. I mean, you don't have to tell people that they should have the motivation to become a Buddha.
Exactly. So what do I tell them?
Ask them to think about it.
Venerable, they are lost already.
Look, if I tell you to have some certain motivation, that's not going to make you have that motivation anyway.
You did, and it made me have that motivation.
Well, there's something strange about you, I think, because most people, you tell them to have some kind of motivation. People have to think of that for themselves. No? So the best thing is to ask them, help spur the thinking process. No? Or you don't even have to ask them, just talk about your own process, to think about, talk about how you, before maybe didn't have any kind of sense of purpose or sense of goal or what you're aiming for, but then this and this happened. And then ask them about what are your goals in life. Help people to start thinking about it for themselves. But I think you're being unfair, actually. I think many people, they do have motivation, actually. Most people have, for any parents, they want their children to be well, they want to raise their children well, for example. They want to give their children opportunities in life. Or for, young people, say maybe they want to meet a spouse or something, have a partner. Or, people have short-term motivations, of course, have a good career. A farmer, they want to have good crops this year, and maybe buy some more land. Of course, people have all kinds of motivations.
Yet they have the motivation, yet there is depression, yet there is sadness, yet there is this profound sense of that I am getting nowhere. Yeah. Especially at an age of, after the age of 40, that's when they really kind of, I'm not saying all.
Of course.
There is joy, there is happiness, and there is all the good things in life in some people's lives.
Yeah.
Those are the people perhaps who do have certain motivations.
Yeah.
But the people I'm talking about specifically are the ones who do not have the joy in life. People who are depressed, people who are sad, people who are in darkness.
Yeah. So you try to help them, try to befriend them, try to spend time with them.
It's tough.
It is.
It's tough. It's tough to bring out that yes, you can have this motivation.
Helping other people is one of the most difficult things to do, no? But the best way is to be a good role model, no? You have to try to be a good person as you see, a person. And then try to show others how, the more you can do good at being the kind of person that you want to be, then the more wisdom and kind of effect you have on other people. People see that, okay, there's something about this guy, he's stable, he always seems happy, he always seems content. Then naturally they can learn from that. But if we ourselves are totally imbalanced and totally up and down and have no control over our own minds, sometimes really moody, sometimes happy, sometimes miserable, and things are in chaos in our lives, then other people are going to look at us and be like, oh, God, I can't deal with that too. I have enough things to deal with without dealing with that guy. Right? So it's like the best way to help. One of the best ways to help others is just try to spend time working on ourselves, become, a stable person, a kind person, a person who's not, it's kind of like, rather than the waves on the surface of the ocean always up and down, it's like, we're in touch with the depths of the ocean. That we're stable and calm and we can deal with different situations. And then we have a reservoir of time and energy to deal with, to help other people with their problems. And people naturally turn to us because they feel safe, they feel like we're someone they can trust, that they can rely on, that is kind of even keeled in the midst of a storm, right? But to think that we can go around and tell this person this and their life's going to be better, and tell this person that and their life's going to be better, and tell this person that and their life's going to be better, it's just, of course, it'd be great if we could be like that. That'd be great. But the fact is, we're too ignorant. Like, we don't know really what's going on with other people, and we don't know what they need to hear to be able to change. I mean, of course, we strive. It'd be great if we eventually can be like that. But even the Buddha, many people, the Buddha teach and they think, he just doesn't know what he's talking about. Even the Buddha, the one who was the Buddha's attendant for the first 18 years of his life or something, thought he was just a charlatan, just a kind of a fake. So, we're Devdatta, Buddha's own cousin. They grew up together. Buddha tried to help him his whole life. He couldn't help him an ounce, no? Devdatta always throughout his whole life, he's just jealous of Siddhartha and then Gautama Buddha. And just jealous of him and trying to kill him, trying to divide up his sangha, trying to steal his disciples, trying to steal his patronage, just trying to harm him right up until the end of his life. So, I mean, if the Buddha, he couldn't help his own cousin, then what are we going to do for our neighbors? And of course, we can do what we can. When there's opportunity, try to help, but don't go around preaching to other people and proffering uninvited advice. Nobody likes that, no? And you'll just drive people crazy, so just annoy people. So, yeah, I mean, that's one of the biggest, I think, kind of in a way, one of the most tragic things in life a little bit is seeing that other people suffer, really wanting to help them and not knowing how, and seeing that even when we do, often it just doesn't work. We don't really know how. It's one of the most difficult things in life, especially when people are close to us. You see oftentimes with parents, with their children have real problems, and parents really want to help them, but they really don't know how. And the way they try to help doesn't really seem to help. That's a very difficult thing. Also, of course.
Offering, having a motivation in life cannot be a panacea for all the for all the evils that I'm going through, for all the ills that I'm going through.
There's no panacea. I mean, of course, for oneself, having a clear motivation and generating that again and again, just having a motivation that my life somehow be of benefit to others. Even Buddhahood is way up there. Of course, we want to have the motivation because we want to be the most possible benefit to others, and the state from which we can offer the most benefit is as a fully enlightened being, a Buddha, right? But the shorter-term motivation is just whatever I'm doing today, may it benefit, may I not harm others, and may I benefit them as much as possible. So just to have, that for oneself again and again, may my life be beneficial to others. Yeah, that is big help, but it's not like that's going to eliminate all problems. It's going to eliminate all my depression, eliminate all my happiness. I mean, eliminate all my problems and stuff. That's unrealistic.
Not all, but I'm sure
some.
Quite a lot.
Yeah, quite a lot. Yeah.
Helping others out.
It's definitely going in the right direction to eliminate all eventually. The main thing is we want to be going in the right direction. Then eventually things get better and better and better.
Individual. People have to, your own motivation changes over time.
Yeah.
People have different stages of life.
Yeah. True. I mean, yeah, true in terms of the more specific things motivating you, but just generally to have the motivation, may my life bring, some benefit to the world. I don't think you have to change that one. That one can stay for as long as it is.
That's something which is haunting me since a very long time.
Please.
How to deal with fake people? People who speak constant lies all the time.
With compassion. Have compassion for them. Why do you think they're being fake?
I mean, in life you get to meet so many people who get in touch with you for something, and you end up in a very bad situation.
Yeah.
So how do you manage that situation?
Well, on the one hand, you have to have some street smarts, right? Don't be a sucker. If it seems like someone's really deceiving you, treating you in one way so that they can get something else from you, be aware of that possibility, and then be cautious. No, don't just jump into agreeing to do things or, giving out your CVV, what is it? Anyway, don't just giving out your account number or your PIN number to anybody who calls you up and asks for it because they say they're going to deposit money in your account, like, as a simple example. Like, there are deceptive people. There are people who are going to try to hoodwink us and take advantage of us. So, yeah, we have to have some street smarts and be aware of that and be cautious and not just blindly follow that. But that doesn't mean we have to be angry and resentful and bitter about that. Why are those people doing that? Because they don't have a sense of what's moral and what's amoral. Because probably they don't have a better way to make a living, or they don't see how wrong that is to have that kind of living, or people who are being fake oftentimes because they have something inside that they don't know how to deal with, so they just mask it and cover it up by acting as if there's something that they're not. So have compassion. Every situation, have compassion for the people. Think about the causes behind. Don't just look at the person's action and the person, but think about the causes behind, the whole story behind. How did they end up thinking like that and being in that situation? It's not because people aren't bad just because they wake up and decide, yeah, I'm going to be a bad person today. It's a whole set of complex circumstances, the family, their environment, the education, the kind of friends they fall in with, the kind of ideas they get exposed to. If we all were born in the hills of tribal Pakistan, we wouldn't be the people, tribal Afghanistan or tribal Pakistan, same thing. We wouldn't be the people we are right now. We would have all these kind of bigoted ideas, possibly, about the world and about status of women and about, what's important in life. We're very fortunate to have been born in the circumstances that we're born in, to be able to have the freedom to think about things that we have now, rather than, have totally other distorted ideas. So people don't just wake up deciding I'm going to be like a bad person and deceive and hurt people, but rather they fall into that, being that kind of person through a whole set of circumstances that are beyond their control. So if you think about that, then okay, you protect yourself, but you don't become bitter and resentful. You have compassion for the person.
But what do you do when you get cheated? Do you try to retaliate, or do you just stay away from those people?
Yeah, just stay away, I think. Yeah, of course, if you can get your money back, get your money back. But otherwise, if you can't, then you can't. And just stay away and try not to let it happen again.
I think the cause for that can be because you cheated, so you got cheated.
That's karma. Yeah.
So if you look at it that way, then it's great. It's great he cheated you.
Believe in Kali, you won't be able to identify people.
Anyway, we only have 2 minutes left, so we don't have time to get into karma.
Just one more sentence, because I just recall a group discussion we had with Abba, and she made this observation in the end.
Yes.
And she said, I'm in a more peaceful zone now, because rather than trying to control things, which we are into when we are younger, we come to a state of acceptance as time passes by.
Yeah.
It makes it a little more peaceful and easier on yourself.
When you can't do anything.
Yeah. You accept,
you become too old to do anything.
No. You cannot control everything, in a sense. You do the best you can.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Okay, we're out of time now. Actually, I keep looking at this clock in the back, but the battery is run dead and it's stopped. So actually, it's 8 o'clock now. So let's just dedicate. Then what we do is, at the beginning, we generate motivation. Why am I doing this sort of long-term goal? At the end, whatever positive energy we've generated, we dedicate. Dedicate means thinking by the merit, whatever positive energy I've created, may this, and this happen. So it's almost the same as motivation, except that it comes at the end. So think of whatever positive energy we've created, whatever virtue or merit we've created together during this session, and rejoice. Think how good it is. We've come here, not with a motivation, not just a purely selfish motivation or just a materialistic motivation, but in order to be better people somehow. So rejoice. Think how good it is what we've been doing the last 2 hours. And then think, by whatever positive energy we've created, by the force of this, then may oneself, may myself, and all sentient beings, all humans, animals, we're all the same and wishing for happiness and wishing to be free from suffering. May they be free from every form of suffering. physical, mental sickness, and discomfort, abuse, violence, war, oppression, poverty, hunger and thirst. May people be free from every form of suffering. And in the future, may all of my actions only contribute to reducing the suffering of myself and others. And through the force, whatever positive energy we've created by this, may myself and all other sentient beings have every happiness and well-being up to full enlightenment. May they have food, clothing, prosperity, companionship, education, good health, wisdom, mental clarity. And may all their wholesome aspirations be fulfilled. Okay, thank you. So we'll conclude there.